everybody, and welcome. We are here on our episode today is all around scaling to 100k months. This is all about a recruitment success story, and I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, who is Colin Pybus from Pybus Recruitment in Sunderland in the UK. So welcome, Colin.
Thank you.
And actually, Colin is joining us from sunny Tenerife. So even though his business is in Sunderland, he's actually in the exotic location of Tenerife today. So thank you very much for joining us from afar as well. So Colin, today we're going to be talking about your success story, and that is all about, growing your revenue and growing your business over the last 7-8 months. First of all, before we get stuck into your success story, would you mind telling us a little bit about your recruitment business, so who you are and who you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a small team, 6 recruiters within the team, specialising in the automotive sector. So when I talk about automotive sector, I talk about car dealerships, body shops, that type of thing, because that's what my background was for 25 years. So we're a fairly new business, only been trading for 3 years. And one of my biggest challenges actually was I have not been a recruiter, wasn't a recruiter, but fell into recruitment almost, and this is where we are now. So from trading by myself 3 years ago, sat in my spare office at home, to having a great team of 5 of the colleagues who support the UK automotive sector with recruitment.
Fabulous. So, and thank you for that. And that's fast growth in the last 3 years. So, congratulations for that. And we always say, some of the best recruiters come into recruitment with no recruitment experience, and scale their businesses to great heights. Let's go back to, I think it was about 7 or 8 months ago, wasn't it, Colin, when you first came into our world? Yeah. So back then, what was happening for you? What were the kind of obstacles that you were experiencing in your business?
So we were a steady business, generating a steady turnover, and the bottom line, it was steady. There was 4 of us in the team, and I was just looking at, where do we go next? What steps am I going to take next? And as I'd said earlier, I'm not from a recruitment background, so you don't know what you don't know. So I'm sort of sat thinking, what does my long-term future look like?
Yeah.
And it isn't to work in recruitment for the rest of my life, if I'm being brutally honest, but I've got a business, I've got an opportunity, and I'm really struggling to figure out, one, what am I going to do in 2, 3, 4 years' time? Where's the team going to go? How can we maximize the opportunity? And what do we do next? Now, obviously that creates a lot of soul searching, because you're trying to figure it out yourself. So I started investing too much time looking at other businesses, trying to find what that potential silver bullet was or could be. And in the meantime, I'm looking at people who were offering support. And you start looking at, what is the cost? And so that's kind of where I got to. So 7 months ago, I'm in a position where I've got an opportunity to grow. I need to start figuring what the future looks like. And if I'm being frank, I think I needed help. I talked to colleagues, ex-colleagues, some really, really, some really superb operators in the automotive sector. Who were asking the right questions, but I genuinely couldn't find what the answer could or should be. So
okay. And what were the kind of things? How is that manifesting, if you like, in your world on a day-to-day basis? So, what were the kind of things that were showing you that you needed help? What were the kind of things that were coming up within the team or within the business?
Yeah, I think the main one was our opportunity was growing. So the opportunity to place candidates. I mean, when I started the journey, most people from the calls were talking about how to get more jobs. I had the opposite problem. I had too many jobs. So we'd gone from 200 to 250 to 300 jobs. And I'm looking at this opportunity and it's growing. However, our turnover is remaining fairly static.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, why is that? So the opportunity is growing. I know we've got a similar sized team, but clearly we weren't focused in the right areas. So, and I could see that opportunity was getting bigger and bigger, but our turnover stats, like I say, fairly static, little bits of spikes, but I just couldn't connect the dots as to why.
Yeah. And that often means that you're working harder, doesn't it? It's this catch-22, because you think, yeah, great, we've got lots of opportunity. That means you're working a lot harder. But actually, like you're saying, the actual return or reward for that is not moving.
And actually, the one thing I failed to mention is my marketing costs. Alongside having more jobs, my marketing costs were growing along with that. And I just needed it. I felt like I needed support into figuring out what I could do, why this was happening. I suppose you just start questioning yourself. Is it something that I'm doing wrong? Then I saw, obviously, there was your program, which I think what captured my imagination was more about sort of working smarter, doubling your turnover quickly, not putting a huge amount of cost into your business. These are all things as an owner you want to hear. You double your turnover, tick. Work smarter, not harder, tick. The biggest question obviously was, well, what is it going to cost me? So my journey was, I dipped my toe in the water, did a free seminar, came away, thought about it again. If I'm being brutally honest, trying to figure it out myself again, because you just don't want to spend the money. And to be fair, at that point, I didn't even know what it was going to cost. I just knew it was going to cost me something.
Yeah.
So I went away, tried to figure it out, and then just got to a point where I thought, no, bite the bullet, Colin, and take that next step, and then find out what it's all about. And actually, there was no pressure. It was no. I think that was probably one of the triggers. Nobody was giving me the big sell. It was, this is the opportunity. This is the outline of the program. That's what it's gonna cost. I think I was cheeky and tried to negotiate, but I'm from a sales background.
Exactly. A great salesperson always does. So that's, yeah.
Felt a bit guilty afterwards, as we all do, and then decided that I was going to join the program. But what I did is I got my team at the time involved to say, look, this is what I'm going to do. I have this open. I'm almost an open book. So I just told everybody what I was going to do and what we were going to try and achieve. They'd all bought into it because I felt there was going to be a lot of change coming our way.
Yes. And so get them on board and get them on the bus, as we say. Great. Okay, perfect. So let's talk about what you changed then. So you joined the program. What was one of the biggest shifts that you implemented, first of all? Because you said you had a lot of jobs. Yeah. What was the first thing that you changed?
I mean, there is rafts of actions that I could take you through, but I suppose the one that springs to mind when you say the biggest action. So we halved the number of jobs. Yeah, we halved the number of jobs that we were working on, which is counterproductive, taking away half of the opportunity. And I must confess, it took Jane more than one session to convince me that making the car lighter to go faster was the way forward. So, yeah, big challenge. But we halved the number of jobs that we were working on, which clearly freaked out the team and me. Actually, I'm not going to deny it. But I would say that was probably one of the biggest changes that we made to improve to improve the overall result. Now, it's not just a case of, well, we'll just take half. Clearly, there was a lot of theory and a lot of thought and a huge amount of process sat behind that to make that decision on what we're going to work on and what we're not going to work on and why. I'll try and give you three key bits, key changes that we made. One, which was quite a big investment of time for me and my team, because we all did it, which was an investment in trying to figure out where we were spending our time.
Yeah.
So it sounds a bit odd going back to school, writing down what have you done for the last 15 minutes, what did you do for the last half an hour, and we we were meticulous in figuring out where we were investing our time. And it was clear we were investing our time in the wrong areas. But without that data, we couldn't make a decision on which way we were going to move forward. So it was about creating time and capacity in terms of what we're doing as individuals. It was about where we're focusing our energy. It was about the money that we were spending, because again, that was so it was time, energy, and money. I suppose that is it. So the energy spent on jobs that we shouldn't have been working on, the time and spending on those jobs, and in other areas, in other third-party websites, whatever it may be, where we were spending our time. And I think one of the key points, and I say this constantly, is 80% results come from 20% of our effort.
That's right. That's exactly it. But you're right. Often you don't know what those things are. And when you're busy in that, okay, we've got lots and lots of opportunity, of course, our mind sees that, doesn't it? As in, well, why would I say no to opportunity when surely I can just convert more of it? But what you're talking about is that philosophy, isn't it? It's Pareto's law. It's actually, well, hold on a minute. It is about that Ferrari, let's make it lighter to make it go faster, which is we actually need to work smarter, not harder. So what are the jobs that give us our greatest return, isn't it? It's what are the jobs that we've got the highest success or fill rate in, rather than those jobs that are taking up our time. But you're also talking about there systems and processes. Like you're right, it can be that you're on job boards or you're on certain platforms that you think are giving you a return when actually they're not, but you haven't necessarily looked at that data to actually find out if that's the case.
Yeah, I used an analogy with the team, which was like a kids under 5 football team. We were kicking the ball into the corner flag and everybody was running after the ball. That was what we were doing with jobs, rather than taking a step back and being a little bit more strategic. I know it sounds simple, but being a bit more strategic, figuring out the triggers and what, which we now class as goal jobs, what sits behind a goal job and what process will we use to work on that goal job, and categorizing other jobs. So if there's a silver job, we have another process that we would use, because there's still an opportunity, but it's not a huge investment in time. And then obviously the bronze jobs, I'm saying it's obvious, not for everybody who's listening to the call, but obvious for us. If it was a bronze job, we just park it up. And actually I'm having conversations with clients and explaining the reasons why, and having some positive outcomes. So it's now influencing their decision on how they operate. It's a slow burn. I'm not saying everybody's turning, but we have got clients who we were working with on jobs that we were unlikely to ever fill, where now we're getting a return because we're educating them.
Right, fantastic. So the client's getting a better level of service, your team happier, and you're getting, greater results off the back of it. And like you said, you're probably saving hours where you would have been working jobs that are just not going to come from anything. And that's the thing about contingent recruitment, isn't it? Unless you are, like you're saying, really, really robust and focused on where your energy goes, without knowing, you're sort of burning money. And we don't see that. We don't see that that's what's going on. Tell us how you got the team on board with this, because you mentioned, and I think people can resonate with this. Like, hold on a minute, we've got all these jobs. Why would we suddenly cull all these jobs right back and work half of what we're working? What kind of mindset or what process did you walk the team through to get them on board with that? Because there must have been some pushback initially.
The concept, yes, pushback. But once you get into the detail, and they get into the detail, then there wasn't any pushback. So what we did, Katy, we did an audit on the jobs that we were working on and graded them. We also looked back over the last 6 months and graded some of the jobs that we were working on and saying, okay, well, how much time have you invested and how many of those jobs have you been able to fill? So we looked at we were filling less than, it's something crazy, like less than 1% of the bronze jobs we were filling. And then it dawned on everybody, was saying, well, why are we working on these jobs? What return are we getting? But it wasn't just about the outcome, i.e., were we getting a fee? It was the frustration. Huge amount of frustration working on those jobs, and it drags everybody down. So everybody had looked and thought, Absolutely, it was a sort of a light bulb moment. Yeah, we're investing time, we're investing my money, or their. I give them a budget, so they invest their own money in trying to find candidates on jobs which were very unlikely to fill. So they realise, actually, if we part all that up and work on a low number of jobs, but more of I say the term of a sniper approach, as opposed to a shotgun, then we're getting a better return. So the outcome for them is working on less jobs, having a better relationship with the clients who were working on those jobs. Their placements have gone up, the revenue's gone up, their commission's gone up, and everybody, it's just win, win, win. So, but the process up behind it was, just looking back at the data, and working on. So we talk about working on data, not drama, and we make decisions on facts and not how we feel. But without that process, and without the program, we wouldn't have figured out the process. So therefore, that was a big driver for us to kick on. So in terms of conversion, we've gone from huge amount of jobs at 5%, low number of jobs, but our turnover is up 62% over 6 months.
Excellent. Well done.
And our cost base is down. So cost base is down, revenue is up. As a small business owner, it's music to my ears.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic. Well done, you and the team for doing that, and for putting that into play. So it's a huge impact on that. What else have you put into place that's also had additional positive impacts for you and returns?
Ooh, so we've had, so if I turn the clock back 7 months, we were almost reliant on who was going to respond to one of our ads at my cost. So we were, I wouldn't say winging it, because that doesn't feel like the right word, but it wasn't within our gift. We were waiting on people to respond, and there was a little bit of outreach, whereas now we're looking at more, 2/3 is within our control. So when I break it down now, I'm saying a third will come from whatever we advertise. The other 2/3 are coming from referrals, or a third from referrals. So we had a very loose referral process. And when I say loose, it was incredibly loose. But we've now got a structure and a process which is delivering a result. Now that's within our gift. We can find candidates without having to wait for somebody to respond to something that we've put out. And we've got a database. Now, as a new business, I get it, 3 years ago, we didn't have one, but now we have. And that again, so we're getting a third of our opportunity from our database. But it's not just called in, we have processes. So if we grade the job, we know it's a great job, we know it's the right fit for the potential candidate. We've got the candidate in our database. We've used the training that's available through the program, so our calls are much better. So we get it. So we're getting a third from from adverts, a third from referrals, and a third from our database. So 2/3 of our opportunity is now within our gift. We can do that with a process, whereas previously we were. I don't like using the word wing it, but we were just praying that people were going to respond.
Yeah,
which is what the employer would do.
Exactly. So that's super cost effective for you, isn't it? But also, like you're saying, that's the confidence that then your consultants have got, which is actually all of this again is at our fingertips. It's all that working smarter, isn't it? Which is, hold on a minute, we've got a database of candidates here. Our candidates can generate more candidates for us. I mean, candidates aren't the best source of leads, aren't they? Whether that's for a client or whether that's for a candidate. And actually what you're talking about here is really what I also call like candidate management, which is really understanding you've got two customer bases. And if we got really smart around our candidates and how we manage those candidates and asking the right types of questions. And what you're talking about here is probably one simple question around referral that means we'll then get more of those A-class, candidates, birds of a feather flock together. So we get more of those, but in a really fast and effective and cost-effective way, rather than, let's say, putting ourselves out there on a job board or LinkedIn, where we're just in this huge noise, and no one's actually seeing us. You know, like we're waving like mad, but we're being ignored.
One of the biggest stats. So if 70% of candidates are passive job seekers, according to LinkedIn, if we were previously, we were just in that 30% pool, but now we're operating in the 70% pool by being a bit more proactive when it comes to referrals in our own database. I mean, yeah, that was the start. I'll tell you where we are now. So only this week we are launching an automated attraction machine for both candidates and clients. So I'm pretty hopeful if we were talking again in 6 months' time. Without the program, I wouldn't have really figured that out either. You know, how can we automate some of this? How can we get more candidates to come to us? So we had a database. Yes, I thought about it. We could do a newsletter, but I never thought about our place candidates. In the sector we operate, there's a 35 to 40% staff turn. So how do we get these candidates to come back to us? So we've now got an automated process with that. Again, saving time and money. Not seeing the return just yet because it's only just started. Then we've got 12,000 people sat in our own database. How to communicate with those guys and girls. So it was so we've got a process with outreach to the database, which will start this week. And then from a client perspective, actually there's one defining moment in the program, which was, and I think it was classed as being sort of the Amazon model. So we are working with some big businesses and some valued clients who give us good opportunity, but not necessarily easy to work with. Whereas some of the smaller clients are easier to work with, but there is thousands and thousands of them out there. And how do you communicate with us? So we spent a huge amount of time developing a database of potential clients who are more sort of smaller business owners who don't have the infrastructure of the bigger businesses, who do need recruitment help, but don't know what we do and how we do it. So I've got a message sequence going out this week to a small number, because I'm concerned that we might not be able to cope with the volume that comes in. But again, it's all here. I must confess, I mean, at the start of the journey, huge amount of time and investment of my own time. But now I'm in a place where I've got a lot of automation, and I think a lot of it's just going to continue to build. But it's all off a solid foundation because we've got process. And I can't stress enough, we've got a process for a process. We've got a process for writing a process.
Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it? And actually, I don't know how when you first started, like, what was your impression or what was your value around processes before you started that journey?
So I'm from an industry where genuinely everything is process driven.
Yeah,
I then
true.
came into an industry and forgot about process. I wouldn't say I forgot about it, but if I was dropped into a car dealership or or to run a business, I'd understand the KPIs that are required, the processes that are used. But because I'm not from a recruitment background, I was making processes up as I went along. I'd say half of them were probably relevant, but half of it was just not working, and I didn't know why. And the program sort of put a spotlight on what we were doing, how we were doing it. And I must say, actually, I'm going to shout out Jane as well, who was an absolutely superb coach in I'm trying to be nice in exposing any flaws that we had in a really in a way that worked for me.
Brilliant. Okay, so just tell us about those tangible business growth results and wins then again, because you mentioned one earlier, but there's been some epic changes for you, hasn't there, since in the last 7-8 months?
Some key headline numbers are conversions now 15% and continuing to grow. Arguably, I need to cut more jobs actually, because I genuinely feel it'll increase again and again. If I can increase the turnover, drop our costs, win-win. As I said, our turnover is 62% up, and that's continuing to grow. We also, as a team, nobody had the belief that we would achieve £100,000 turnover in a month. Our previous best month was 65, I think. So 65 was our best month. 3 months after the program, we're sort of doing 100, and we just fell short of 100 again. So you start thinking about those numbers. I mean, they're incredible, particularly without growing our cost base. I suppose that, so it's those numbers. From a personal perspective, if I wound the clock back 12 months, I was worried about covering our overheads. That was my biggest worry. Are we going to cover our overheads this month? We had a bumpy, it was up and down. We're now a lot more consistent. I feel like when I go in every month that overheads, if they're not covered, they're just about covered. And we're going to continue to grow. The team have a lot more confidence. I can just feel it and see it. But personally, I feel like I think the business is in a good place, and personally, I'm in quite a good place as well, in that I can work from Tenerife and not stress.
Brilliant. And that's what it's about, isn't it? Having your own business where you've got that flexibility and financial freedom, and also, like you say, less stress. Fantastic. So, Colin, thank you very much for that. What would you say to somebody who is in that same position as you were, 7 or 8 months ago, who maybe, like you're saying, is experiencing those same challenges, is looking for support, or maybe they're thinking about it? What would be your advice to somebody who may be sitting on the fence?
So my advice would, don't do what I did and procrastinate for too long. Because my only real regret was, if I did it 6 months earlier, where would I be now? But I get where anybody listening to the video will be thinking, okay, well, who's going to pay for it? What's the cost? And I was brought up always looking at the return. So, what's the return on the capital I'm going to employ? I didn't know what I was going to employ but I was hesitant always. I look and trying to figure it out myself to save the cost. It's the best cost. It's probably the best spend I've had, actually. It wasn't as much as what I thought, genuinely, when I came off the original call. So the investment wasn't as big as what I thought. The return has been incredible. My regret would be not doing it earlier. In fact, definitely that's what it would be. And I should have got into recruitment earlier as well, actually. Having spent 25 years in the automotive sector, stressed doing 60 hours a week, now to having a pretty good business is a good place to be.
More time in Tenerife. Well, thank you, Colin. And, it does take action. That's the main thing. So, and this is, these are what we've been talking about today, are really simple shifts in your business, simple tactics, simple systems, that do create less stress, less work, but greater abundance, greater revenue for you. So if you're listening and you want the same plan, if you'd like to know how Colin got his business to 100K months, just click on the link below and we will show you how we help other recruitment businesses to leverage more time, more opportunities, and make more placements. And we will give you the whole map. So click on the link below. Colin, thank you so much for being our star today. You have been a legend, and thank you very much for sharing those wins in your business. And we wish you all the very best to continue with this level of success for another 6 months and beyond, and those results that you'll get too. So thank you very much indeed. And we will see you on the next episode. So thanks for joining us today.